Hello everybody, this is Brent Sherban coming to you from DragTheBar, and today I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm at the Bellagio in Las Vegas, and on my laptop, so I don't have any poker tracking stats or anything like that, but I thought I would do some cash games. So I got a couple of 10-20 games up here, and I don't really have any reads. I've been at the left-hand table for a little while, so I do have a little bit of feel for some of the players at the table. On the right side, um, I've heard of a couple people at the table. I know Irock Hose is a card runners instructor, and Mr. Cup seems to be pretty bad from what I've seen in the few hands that I've played with him. But basically, I'm going to try and take advantage of the fact that a lot of these guys are probably regulars and probably know each other's games, but have no idea who I am since I don't ever play cash games. Well, I don't. I haven't played on full tilt for a long time, so they probably don't have any, you know, preconceived notion of the way that I play. And usually, new people that come into the games, I think regulars assume that they're kind of fishy. So I'm gonna be and I've already kind of started doing this on the left-hand side. I've been kind of trying to do some fishy things, like maybe limp some buttons or make some non-standard bet sizing and playing a little bit passive, a little bit rope-a-dope, letting people try and bluff me off of pots. And that's kind of the image that I want to portray right away if people don't know who I am, because they're just going to assume I'm a bad player. And so even if you have two players that know what they're doing, if one player knows more or less how the other person plays, so if I can assume that these guys are regulars and are gonna play pretty standard wise, then on the other side of the coin, if they have a misconception that I play, really fishy, or they have no idea how I play, they can't really figure it out, then I'll have an advantage, even though they might be a slightly better uh, player overall, for example. So on the left-hand table, um, I do have double my starting stack. Like I said, I've been playing a little while. It wasn't one big hand. It's more just been, uh, like 5 or 6 hands over a time period. And most of the hands was me trying to look kind of fishy and passive and letting them just do the pulling as the donkey and bluffing into me. Here, this guy, he seems to be a pretty good short stacker. He seems to be pretty tight, and I'm sure he's way ahead of my range, so I'll be folding a7. If it was a maniac short stacker, like you see every now and then, who are just shoving any ace or like 40% of their hands, then might consider calling there. But this guy seems to be a pretty good short stacker. So yeah, Brostery seems like a pretty good short stacker. The Zaidster seems pretty decent. Go 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 I think is definitely a good aggressive lag. He must be a regular that puts in a lot of hours. I think I've actually played with him a long time ago. Outclassed, he seems a little bit passive, and so I've taken advantage of that a couple of times. He's a little bit tight and a little bit passive. And then Josh just joined the table. On the right-hand side, Captain Table seems to be a pretty good regular player from what I've seen so far. Back from Busto, the same. They seem like good players. Irock Hose also. Picanto seems kind of tight. I haven't seen him get out of line at all. It's a 3-flush board that I'm going to go ahead and take one shot at. This guy's pretty loose, but if I'm hoping they completely missed it. Well, I'm going to give up because this is definitely the target, and he's definitely calling station. And with a lot of calling stations, this might be a good board to just triple barrel him all in on the river, but he might actually call me 3 barrels with just a 9, so I'm going to go ahead and just give up. I honestly don't think he'll fold a 9 either, so I'm just going to check behind. Yeah, I had the best hand. Probably called me with a medium diamond. Yeah, jack of diamonds. So if you are gonna play, one thing definitely that makes it nice about playing in a higher game with regulars is if you can just get one fish in there, it makes such a huge difference because um, not only does it put a negative EV player into the pot, so it increases your EV, but it makes everybody else play differently and worse around you as well because they're trying to take advantage of that one fishy player. Definitely calling here, obviously. Unfortunately, it's a race. There we go. That's what I like. Hopefully he rebuys. He's rebought a few times, so hopefully he comes in one more time. But with all that dead money out there, I think Picanto, yeah, I think I'm probably ahead of his range, and I don't mind stacking off for half a buy-in against his range. And with IROC Hose and Mr. Cup calling afterwards, there's a lot of dead money in there, so I definitely think that re-raising Ace Queen is pretty standard there, especially if you have a guy that's going to stack off with a really wide range, like Mr. Cup did with threes. I'm sure he probably would have done the same thing with like Ace 10 or something like that if he'd called the original raise with a hand like that. And here on the left side, I'm going to be continue to play pretty standard. Not really get out of line unless the perfect opportunity comes up because most of these players seem pretty solid. And go, 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 go is really aggressive. I've noticed that he likes to 4-bet pretty light, and so I'd rather just take this, take a flop in position against him and use his aggression against him. He might 4-bet me, and that's going to be a tough situation. And Outclassed and Zadester seem to be kind of loose, but they don't do a lot of 3-betting. Zadester's done a little bit of 3-betting. I'm going to go ahead and take one off here. I could raise here, but I'm going to continue to do what's been working for me. Let the other players just continue to bluff into me. If he bets here, I'll probably give it up because not only is he representing 9 or better, but Zadester's still in the hand. This is a tough spot because I can't imagine Zadester calling with worse than a 9. It's kind of a tough spot. I might be ahead here, but I'm going to go ahead and take the free card. This is, in retrospect, maybe I should have bet on the turn and checked it down on the river, but it's kind of a tough spot. That is an interesting bet. That could be a defensive bet with something like 7s or 6s or 4s, or it could be a full house, or it could be defensive bet with something like 9s. I'm getting 3-1. I'm probably beat, but I think there's a 1 in 4 chance that I may have the best hand, so I'm gonna go ahead and call. Yeah, he had a 9. Probably a raise would have been better there, but I think maybe there's some full houses in this range. Maybe not. Yeah, I kind of like a raise on the river. That did seem like a defensive bet. So that's where you get in trouble playing it passively, getting kind of some tough spots, but it's easier if you have position on the hand. He's been raising to 50 every time with like mediocre hands out of the small blind. So It's kind of interesting that he's raised to 60. Actually, kind of scares me a little bit. It makes me think that he might have a little bit better hand this time. So I'm going to go ahead and fold an easily dominated hand. So with the queens here, I'm not going to be folding. I'm actually going to go ahead and take a free card here. And really the only hand that is going to hurt me is an ace, so I'm not too worried about giving free cards when I'm either way ahead or way behind. And I'll probably go ahead and call any reasonable bet on the river here as well. Yeah. Yeah. Kind of unfortunate. Guess captain table. Thought I had nines. Hopefully Mr. Cup decides to go off again, but he didn't, unfortunately. So yeah, I think more standard move when I'm playing with people that are used to my game and know how I play would be just to bet that flop every time, because I'm going to be betting it with my bad hands as well. But like I said, when I first get into a game, I'm trying to kind of give off a fishy image, and I like to play a little bit more passive, and when I'm playing with people that don't know how I play, it seems to work for me. I have a feeling he may check raise me here, and he could do it with air as well, so I'm not going to be folding this, because I've played so passive that I can't imagine him checking a really strong hand here, because he has to think that I'm going to check behind. We go ahead and call for three-way pot here. So I'm going to continue to bet. It's kind of a sick spot if I get check raised here. But yeah. I could have the best hand here, but even if I do, it could get very ugly on the turn, and this is going to be a tough hand to play with second pair out of position, and it's probably going to get worse. So I'm going to go ahead and fold. So basically, going back to what I was saying earlier, when I'm playing with people that I'm new to my opponents, I want to confuse them, and I don't want to play like regulars do with the same kind of scripted aggressive play, I guess, that everybody plays at these levels. I kind of want to mix it up and put a lot of doubt into my opponent's head, so that when I do make hands, I get paid off, and they're never quite sure where I'm at, and they end up value owning themselves against me. And I think it's easier for me to play against somebody when I know how they're playing, but very difficult for them when they're not sure if I'm just a complete fish, or if I kind of know what I'm doing, or So I like to mix it up a little bit and not play just the standard, aggro, raise a lot, 3-bet a lot, c-bet a lot type of game. I like to mix it up a little bit. And of course that doesn't work forever. As your opponents start to get used to how you play, then they take advantage of it, and of course then it becomes a leveling war. Then you can start playing the standard game that aggressive players play at these levels. That's such a dry flop, I'm going to go ahead and be a little deceptive and check behind. This is actually something I do with air a lot too, is check behind and then raise them on the flop. I'm going to take some time though, just to confuse them a little. If he has a set here, then I really did myself in, but in that case the money was going to go in anyways. See, this is a completely non-standard play, so I'm imagining he's very confused right now. If he has ace, jack or ace 10 or ace queen, I'm sure he's not going to get away from it. And I'm sure he was thinking about, oh, this guy's pretty passive actually. Maybe that wasn't the best move against that guy. Against passive players, you usually just want to bet, bet, bet. But against aggressive players, I like that because he doesn't know if I'm bluffing, if I have a nutty hand, and a lot of times they'll go ahead and try and re-steal that from you if they have nothing. But in any case, I think I did pick up a little bit more money by checking back the flop. It's also nice when your opponent has nothing. It allows them to go ahead and bluff on the turn. But I wouldn't do that on a wetter flop because it can just get you in trouble on later streets when when the board gets really dangerous. And also on a wetter flop, there's so many draws that your opponent could have that they'll call you with, where you have a big equity advantage. So you want to definitely be getting that equity on the flop when you're for sure ahead. If this folds me in the small blind, I'll go ahead and raise because Picanto's been pretty tight. I'm going to go ahead and fold to the min raise by Mr. Cup, though. He doesn't have a lot of chips, and he doesn't like to fold. And I don't really like playing ace rag out of position to guys who don't like to fold. I'm going to go ahead and pull up that hand and look at the action again on the kings versus fives. Let's see. So, looks like Josh raised. Outclass calls. He makes a sizable flop bet with his fives. He checks the turn. Check, check. Makes a pretty big value bet on the river, too. I'm surprised his bet sizing seems pretty big when he's got a marginal hand. And Outclass just called. Like I said, he's kind of passive. Although, I mean, obviously he was trapping pre-flop and on the flop, but it seems like at some point you want to get a raise in there with your kings. But It is good to note that he just smooth called with his pocket kings in position. So looks like we got a new person to the table. Be my guest, Bud from the Netherlands. Ace Queen, I think that's a standard raise. I wouldn't be surprised if Outclass calls me. He's been calling me a lot in position. I'm guessing he assumes that since I'm new and playing a little bit different that I'm really fishy, so he's probably playing pretty wide range, calling me in position with a wide range. But I don't really like that strategy if you're just going to play really passively. If you're going to be calling with a really wide range where you're usually going to be behind, then I think you've got to be taking away some of those pots post-flop with the worst hand. As much as I'd love to play any pots against Mr. Cup, he's raising 100, 1/8 of his stack, so can't call 6-9. Here this is pretty nitty, but I might fold. Outclass isn't that aggressive, at least from the play that we've had so far. And Ace Jack's kind of tough to play, acting first through the hand. So I'm gonna go ahead and fold it. Usually, if the raise comes from the cutoff or the button, I'll 3-bet that. Sometimes just smooth call, and sometimes just fold. Just kind of depends on, I guess, definitely the opponent that you're up against and kind of the flow of the match. If your 3-bets are getting respect, or if you're against an opponent who calls 3-bets a lot and then folds to c-bets, then you're going to want to be definitely 3-betting that and c-betting the flop. But if it's against a tight opponent, it's not always great to 3-bet if their range is already beating you. And then sometimes if you're against a very aggressive opponent who thinks that if you're just calling, then you don't have a strong hand. Oh, come on, Mr. Cup, suck out, suck out! Darn. You always got to root for the bad player to get more chips. But like I was saying, if you're up in a lot of times if I'm up against an aggressive player who thinks that just calling is weakness and who's just going to hammer you and double triple barrel you, then a lot of times I'm going to go ahead and bet this time. Then a lot of times I'll just call and hope to hit a jack or an ace and let them kind of value on themselves. I went ahead and bet that because he saw me last time check behind with second pair when I had the queens on the king high flop. So I just want to change it up a little bit. King Jack offsuit fully under the gun is a little bit tight, but again, when I'm playing regulars at decently high stakes and they're good players, hands like Ace Jack out of position against an early position raise or King Jack offsuit in early position, I'm just gonna try and avoid those situations. Back from Busto does seem to 3-bet a decent amount. I'm sure he knows. I'm sure he and Irakos play a lot together. Irakos has a pretty big range, I think, so I'm sure back from Busto is 3-betting pretty large range as well. I'm going to go ahead and call since this is multi-way pot and Mr. Cup has come in and I have position on the button with a hand that plays pretty well post-flop. You can also squeeze there. I think Irakos heard me. It's a great squeezing place. If I knew him a little bit better, I would consider 4-betting here, but I don't. So I'm going to go ahead and fold. But the reason I don't want to squeeze in that situation is because the player that I want to play against is Mr. Cup, and I don't want to be squeezing him out of the pot. So it's worth more to see a flop with Mr. Cup where I can potentially get his 1400 than it is to, take a risk of stealing that money that's in the pot pre-flop. Even though Captain Table is a fairly aggressive player, Mr. Cup obviously, probably had nothing. So it's a great opportunity to squeeze, but I think it's a bad idea to be squeezing out the one target at the table that you want to be in pots with. Let's see, so be my guest. I like to kind of see how people react to different types of plays, small blind versus big blind early on. I like to kind of figure out how aggressive they are or how passive they are. So my feeling was that he's one of those players that probably is going to be raising the small blind every time until he gets some resistance. So I want to go ahead and squash that in the bud right away. So I don't know how many of you guys have stayed at the Bellagio, but I love this place. I always stay here when I come to Vegas, and I just had my run good dinner tonight, which is noodles. I love the pad thai and the chicken satay and mango sticky noodle dessert. That's kind of my run good dinner, and I just had that tonight, so I expect to get in a big pot and win if I'm ahead or suck out if I'm behind. See if that happens. Looks like Ship That is new to the table. I'm guessing by his name that he's a regular. So if I wasn't making a video, I would probably just close out of this left-hand table. I think there's some value without class because he's plays pretty passively and seems to be calling a little bit too much, and he seems pretty easy to play against. But other than that, it seems like a pretty tough table. So if this wasn't a video, I try and use some table selection and we'll just cut out of that one and focus on the one on the right where we have at least one target. So hopefully this works. This is the first time I've used the Camtasia software on Mac for a full video. I did a little test video that seemed to work, so hopefully I don't put in a full hour and then find out that the audio didn't work or the video is fuzzy or something like that. I definitely have gotten accustomed to my Mac laptop. I love the Mac laptop and the Mac software, but it's tough sometimes when a lot of the software doesn't work with Mac, like Holdem Manager, for example, and Camtasia is a little bit different, the Mac version. It'll be nice someday when all of the poker stuff gets standardized so that it's a lot easier to makes it easier to play poker on my Mac. I'm gonna go ahead and fold here. King 9 suited is a hand that I would like to 3-bet sometimes, but not against somebody who is a severe calling station. I'd rather make sure I have the best hand and do it for value. So this is kind of the same evolution that I like to play when I sit down at a big live cash game, for example. I like to start out looking kind of nitty and passive, and let people assume that I'm a fish and try and run me over a little bit. And then as time goes on, I like to try and start picking my spots to be more aggressive and steal some pots. It's a good flop for me up here. I'm gonna go ahead and bet it, since obviously I would be c-betting that after 3-betting 100% of the time. It's gonna be a tough situation if I get 3-bet. It's scary that IROC Host just smooth called me out of the small blind. If he 3-bets me, I might consider folding. Okay. Alright, that's a good result with, being 1.5 buy-ins deep. Because really, I don't see somebody stacking off with King Queen or worse. Ty Run Good Meal is paying off. I'm card racking here a little bit. So I guess the re-raise was good. Maybe it's UCB, my guess, folded the small blind that time. Sometimes you'll find players that will just re-raise you every time, or like 70% of the time, and won't fold the small blind if they think that you're a weak player. So I always like to kind of play back at them right away and just kind of get that out of the way, see how they react to it. Hopefully keep them off your big blind a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and fold the ace-3. I've been getting a lot of hands and been pretty active, so I think it's prime time for somebody to start 3-betting me. Indeed, we have a 3-bet. So it's a 4x 3-bet. A little bit bigger than it seems like most people do. Like a little over 3x or 3.5 if they only have one buy-in. So might be interesting if this goes to showdown to see if he has either like a really strong hand or something like ace king, or if there's a reason that he 4-bets, or if that's just his standard. I mean, not 4-bets, but if there's a reason he 3-bets to 4x, or if that's just his standard or not. You'd be surprised how many people actually give off tells with their 3-betting sizes. Kind of an interesting flop. Scary flop, definitely. I could see him. I could see Ship that pot controlling that flop, even if he has an overpair. And interesting bet by Captain Table. You know, less than a third of the pot. Huh. He's able to take it down with his less than 1/3 pot bet. Be interesting to see what they had on those hands. I like that bet sizing though by Captain Table, because it's hard for Ship that to check raise that flop out of position. So I like that bet, even, you know, if Captain Table has a big hand like a set, or if he is just taking a stab at it and trying to take it down. Either way, I like that bet sizing, especially since he's got position. Go ahead and fold ace-6. No luck. I have some solid regular. Huh, I guess I've played with him in the past. It's been a long time ago, though. Go ahead and raise this up. Since it's his first hand, you know, maybe he's going to get adjusted to the table and take an orbit or two before he starts 3-betting light. One thing that I kind of like to do when I'm trying to establish my fishy image, when I first sit down at a table with a bunch of regular people who don't know who I am and have no idea how I play, I like to limp on the buttons with aces. Not pocket aces, like ace rag, for example, like that hand where I had ace-3. For one, it's not, you're not losing that much equity by limping on the button instead of raising the button with your ace. And for two, it's so deceptive. People, you know, for some reason, never think that you have an ace if you just limp on the button. So you can get people trying to blow you off hands when an ace does come, and it just looks fishy in general when you show up with an ace that you limped on the button. Here on the right, I'm mixing it up a little bit. Got 7-8 suited, and I've got my fish in the big blind, so gonna attack him. You know, I'm gonna go ahead and value bet that. Here, you know, I think he could definitely have a 9. He could also have a flush draw. There's a lot of hands that he could have. I'm gonna go ahead and take the free card. Especially, I'd hate to get blown off this hand if I bet something like, you know, like 150 or 200 and he check raises me all in. And that would really suck, especially since I have the equity of the open ender. So I'm gonna go ahead and check behind. Wasn't that nice? I actually saw him. He was on my left-hand table earlier. And that's kind of how I figured out he was a bad player. He tried to bluff me once before by overbetting the river when he missed a draw. It's kind of tough. I mean, most people aren't terrible enough to make the same stupid move twice against the same person, but he could be in this situation. But I'm going to go ahead and let it go. It's not that big of a pot, and I have to think that he wouldn't make the same bad move twice. Some I'm going to go ahead and call, be my guest. You know, I definitely don't want to get 4-bet off of this, and it flops really well, and I have position, so let's see a flop. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and let that go. Here I've got a double gut shot, and diamond draw. Let me go ahead and bet that. I have to think that if he had any piece of that, he would have bet the turn. Here I'll be 3-betting with jacks, obviously. It's pretty standard. I'm gonna go ahead and raise. You know, if the player is really aggressive, I would have, like, some players just raise automatically on principle if you limp your small blind into their big blind. If it was a player like that, then I would definitely have limped and jacked him up after he re-raised me. Oh, come on, Mr. Cup. This is a good situation. Alright. I think I'll call 80 more. And I definitely would have had to 4-bet if I rock hose. 3-bet me there because I think that's pretty standard. Because that looks, you know, it looks like I'm isolating the limper there with a big 5x raise with me on the button. You know, that's a hand, that's a position where I could be doing that with any 2 cards. So I could see I rock hose 3-betting me there with any 2 cards. I'm going to go ahead and smooth call back from Busto in position because we both have, you know, 2 buy-ins here. Hopefully I don't get 3-bet by I rock hose, but I'm going to go ahead and float in position with middle pair. Backdoor flush draw, backdoor straight draw, and if he doesn't have an ace, he's got to shut down on the turn. I picked up more draws. It's kind of an interesting situation. This is the part where it does kind of suck not knowing the players so well. And you know, when I don't know the players very well, I do tend to play more passive because here's a great position to raise on the turn, but you have to know that the player's going to bet twice with only a decent hand and that they can fold. And you know, I just don't know this player well enough, so it's not that big of a bet, and I have a big draw, so I'm just going to go ahead and call. Too bad the backdoor flush didn't come. That would have been nice. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and fold that. One kind of trick that I've noticed a couple times tonight is these guys love to time down with their huge hands. I don't know if they think they get more calls that way or what, but I've noticed that 3 or 4 times actually. Here's a good position. And I'm going to go ahead and go 205. I think ship that. Just by his name, he seems like an aggressive regular, so hopefully I get 4-bet here. 4-bet, drag that bar, drag that bar, drag the bar. You can do it, buddy. You want to ship that. Jedi mind tricks. Oh, he wants to call. Alright, well, hopefully he doesn't have pocket kings. I kind of want to make an ambiguous flop sizing here. I think I would bet about this size no matter what I had. I think, checking that is an option, but again, I don't know the player that well, and the kind of read that I got is that just, my quick read was that he was calling to perhaps try and take the pot away or blow me off the hand. And I think there's a decent chance that an aggressive regular would go ahead and raise that flop with a wide variety of hands, thinking that you can't continue if you don't have a king or better. This is tough, I don't have that much experience playing with good short stackers. I think this guy is a good short stacker. The sites that I normally play cash games on, the short stackers are really bad and they just stack off with everything. And the two that I've seen, playing here tonight, definitely seem to play pretty well. I do have a suited king here, which is decent, and we are deep, but I know this is a good player, and there's no reason for me to be playing marginal hands out of position to somebody that has me covered, who I know is a really good player, when I can be playing pots in position against Mr. Cup or or back from Bustu, who may not be as good of a player. I'm not sure how good he is or not, but I do know iRocco is obviously good. I've watched some of his videos. It's kind of a wet flop here, but I'm going to go ahead and c-bet it because I don't have any showdown value. And my hand's not going to get any better. So I'm just going to take one shot at it and give up. Yeah, it's tailor-made for check raising. And then if I was feeling really manly and I had a little bit of a read on this guy, then this would be a great opportunity to 4-bet bluff because this is just an awesome flop for him to check raise. There's so many hands he could do it with, but I don't have that read on him, so I'm going to go ahead and let it go. All of us are deep stacked here, so I'm going to go ahead and call in a multi-way pot. I do have nut flush draw, which could pay off. I don't think anybody at these upper stakes gets away from flush over flush just because it plays so aggressively. I should take a shot at this. I'm going to go ahead and check it though. This would be a good place to check raise. Yeah, this flop is so dry that you got to think this guy is going to bet the flop. But I'm going to go ahead and let it go. Interesting. So I think iRocco's thought the same thing I did, that he was pot controlling with the queen. But check raise would have worked there, I believe. Four-handed. I'm going to go ahead and 3-bet jacks. Whew, queens. And I am card racking. I should be eating pad thai every night. So, yeah, with the fact that there's dead money in here, so it's gonna look like I'm squeezing. And no luck only has one buy-in. I definitely won't be folding to no luck. I'll be getting it all in. Here, yeah, I'm gonna maybe slow play this a little bit in position. That's interesting. Surprised he would check that flop and give a free card, so I'm gonna go ahead and bet and take it down. But sometimes I also like to slow play decently big hands when I have position and someone's raising my big blind a lot, just to let them know that I could at any time have a monster. So overall, I think I play a lot of live cash games, and all over Central and South America, and I'm always playing and in Las Vegas, and I'm usually playing with new people who don't know me and who I don't know how they play. And I think the important thing when you first sit down with decent players is to try not to give away that you're a strong player. Don't sit there and talk about 2+2 and ranges and what you should be three betting, and or the fact that you could four bet bluff or anything like that. And I think it's important in the beginning to play carefully as you figure out how other people play and take advantage of the fact that they really don't know how you play. I'm going to go ahead and let this one go. And see, this on the right is just a bad situation as well. This guy, I haven't seen him three betting a lot. He hasn't three bet me yet. I could very well be ahead here, but I'm gonna go ahead and let it go. Kind of along the same theme. I want to stay out of the difficult situations myself, and I want the other opponents to be confused and be making the hard decisions. So I probably won't play this on the right too long. It's heads up against a good player. I don't see any reason to put myself in that situation. I'm not really a heads up specialist. I can hold my own, but I don't think it's the most plus EV game for me. So here, this is a good time because it could look like I'm getting a little tilty with that last raise, so I'm going to make it a little bit bigger than usual. And hopefully he's going to think that I'm getting frustrated with him. Nope. I'm going to go ahead and raise the ace-5 suited here, as well as ace-jack, obviously. Let me see if there's any other 10-20 games going that I can get on real quick. Doesn't look like it. Alright, well we've been going a while, so I guess when the button gets to me here, I'm going to go ahead and end the video. But hopefully you saw a few interesting things, and hopefully there were a couple interesting situations, but I think mainly what you saw is that I was trying to stay out of trouble situations myself, and played pretty solid, but not over aggressive, and I wanted to play in a fashion that didn't give away what strength of player I am. Oh, my big blind got to me here. It's a kind of an ugly turn there. You could definitely semi-bluff me with a lot of hands. Glad they didn't. I'm going to go ahead and... This is a really weak check behind, but... It's going to be a tough spot if he... I don't know if there's a lot of hands he's going to call me with. So many spades missed. I'm going to go ahead and check behind. Let's see what he had. He probably would have called a river bet. It's thin. I probably should have taken a shot though. Okay, last two hands, so I'll go ahead and raise it up, see if we can get in something interesting. That's interesting. Alright, I'm not going to chase bad money with a compiled mistake. Alright, well, I hope that everybody has a happy holidays, and until next time, take care, and hope to see you guys in the forums on the DragTheBar site. If you have any questions about this video, or if you have any suggestions for future cash game videos, I have been a tournament coach so far on the site, but I grew up playing cash games, and I'm actually more comfortable and more experienced playing cash games, so I'm going to do both. So if anyone has any suggestions or questions, please put them into the forums or leave me a private comment. Alright, take care.